are live. It's another Wine and Comics pairing show. As always, I am Dave.
And I'm with me, Dallas, of course.
And Dallas, of course. And today we also have a very special guest, JayDee Rosario, the founder, publisher, and one of the writers of Unstoppable Comics. Jay, how you doing today, my man?
Good. How you doing? I'm basically the all-around knucklehead trying to keep things running over here on Unstoppable Comics. You know, to give me the title of publisher or CEO or president or whatever kind of like demeans anybody else who is in that position anywhere else in the world. You know, I'm just
yes,
dude. Guys, in the back of my head, I'm still a guy who's playing with his GI Joes, trying to make a story around, you know, his snake eyes acting like Wolverine. You know what I mean?
For me, it was taking the GI Joe and making them harass the My Little Pony. That was
My Little Pony.
That was the intersection for me.
Yeah. My sister had Strawberry Shortcake, so it was GI Joe versus Strawberry Shortcake.
See,
like
that's synergy. You understand that, right? That is cross promotion that needs to exist today.
Exactly.
Dude,
it's coming.
Rainbow
it's
Bright.
Coming.
Dude, don't forget Rainbow Bright. God damn it.
My favorite, right? Here's cross promotion from the poor end of town as a kid. So my favorite GI Joe, again, real deep cut here, was this guy called Outback. He was pretty much the Chuck Norris, but they couldn't get the rights to do Chuck Norris, right? Yeah. So my Outback wore Batman's cape, held Crystar's sword, rode Battle Cat into the Robo Force castle, which really looked like Krypton from Superman, to fight, you know, a Care Bear because he had Princess Leia trapped. Right? That's what you call synergy.
100%.
And then for me, I always had to, like, you know, tit for tat, like with my sister. It's like we did the adventure story, and then there was the romance homemaking story, right? Where it's sort of like, okay, now your GI Joe has to be the boyfriend and come back home and, like, you know, take care of the play. And here's the Barbie dream house, and I'm like, fine.
See,
then we go do that.
I started my narrative where Jay's was. I picked up the narrative where Dave's was, and my narrative always ended with those. Remember those big wooden blocks, just the simple blocks that kids used to. And so I'd make these massive like forts, and then just lay waste to them. All the other characters would come together and just destroy everything because that's my nature.
I love it. But you know what? At some point, you ran out of the blocks because they were too small. Yeah. So I would use VHS tapes.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Nice. Yes.
Absolutely.
When you're poor, you use whatever you can at your disposal, right? To let the animation work.
They say these generations no longer have any creativity, and I'm going to say that's because they aren't stuck in a corner in a house in the middle of summer with old toys.
You know what I mean? You know, and old comic books, right? Because that's where it was inspired from, right?
That's right.
Oh, guys,
that's right.
There's a lot that's missing. There's a lot that's missing. Growing up a 70s and 80s kid was just
the best.
Oh yeah. You know, so you want me to tell you a wine story?
I do. And sound off in the chat, guys. I see some people here. You're watching. Sound off in the chat. Tell us who's viewing. And yes, Jay is telling us a story. We're talking wine. We were talking wine so much we like blew past the deadline to actually go live. And then I was like, oh shit, we should be talking about this online. Let's actually go live. So Jay, tell us your Shenandoah wine story, please.
Okay, so I was in the Shenandoah Mountains of West Virginia. At a wine tasting for Valentine's weekend with my best friend and our ladies at the time. And, you know, it was our treat for Valentine to take them there. So to reciprocate, they wanted to get us our favorite bottle from the event. Yeah. And here we are. And we're like, we have sweet tooths. Okay, there was chocolates, things were getting paired. We didn't care. I'm sorry, I'm not the sniffer type. I'm not the, you know, spit it out into the jar type.
Right.
I grew up poor, waste not, want not. You know what I mean?
We never do. I don't think Dallas ever does either.
I do, but you know,
you got to finish it. So, they wanted to reward us, right, for the weekend, and they asked us to pick a bottle. We didn't know what we were doing. It was blind because we were busted by that time. And so what we picked, they purchased the bottles, and they came back with 2 bottles for each of us. here we are, amazed. We're like, oh my God, they spent dough on these things. Months later, it came out that they bought us the equivalent of cheap banquet table wine.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
That's why they bought 2 bottles for each of us. And here we are, amazed that it was this great big moment. And I don't want to get dirty into what happened later, but the wine led to a very nice restaurant in Herndon, Virginia, and the wine got to me, and I had to make a pit stop.
Yes.
My best friend, who has known me since before I was born, because our parents knew each other, decided, hey, we're adults, but we still act like we're in college. And here I am in the men's room, and he's snapping pictures of me over the stall.
Oh, no.
I jump out of the stall without having picked everything up on his back, trying to wrestle the phone away. And somebody walks in to the men's room, and it's just, this shouldn't happen in this type of restaurant, but here we are. It was the wine that got
here
to
we
us.
are.
And what's crazy is that is the X factor. The wine, what's in the bottle really doesn't matter half the time.
No,
it's context. It's good people, good atmosphere.
Yep.
Good time.
Yep.
Guys,
so bravo.
Wine lights me up.
Yeah.
That's why I want to have a good time with you guys. So I am not doing the wine because I want to enjoy this moment. I want to remember this moment. I'm doing whiskey. Here we are, 2 fingers. And
that's crazy. So whiskey.
Exactly. I was going to say, I love that whiskey is, you're like, this, I'm going light. I'm just doing whiskey.
Actually, now that I think about it, before I started drinking regularly, I had the same issue. I actually had the exact same issue.
Really?
Harder alcohol did less to me than wine did. And even now, wine hits me quicker than hard alcohol. So
interesting.
Yeah.
God, no, I am still, hard alcohol is still like, I'm like, I might as well be 21 again. I mean, it's just like alcohol is alcohol. I get trashed as I'm such a cheap date. I'm such a lightweight. It's ridiculous, which is one of the reasons why I got into wine in the first place. I didn't actually have a crazy ton of interest in it when I first started dabbling in it. I was just like, I think I like some of these, and I was looking for something to sip in the evening, like something regularly, and it was the low alcohol content. I was like, I think I can handle this. Beer was something I tried. I couldn't develop the palate for it, and it was too heavy. Like I always felt like I was just like, it's beer is like a meal sometimes when you drink that stuff. And so for wine, I'm like, this is something I want to sip while I'm just watching a TV show, reading a book, whatever. Like this works for me. And the low alcohol was something my intolerant ass, low tolerance, I shouldn't say intolerant, that's a different thing, my low tolerance ass could handle. But then I went down the rabbit hole, and now here I am with the wine show. So there you go.
Listen, wine, I'm not knocking it. I've been married now, this month is going to be my 2-year anniversary.
Nice.
And
congrats.
for our wedding, a friend got us a basket of wines which were labeled for special events. Our first Christmas, our first Valentine's.
That's good. That's good.
Our first big purchase. So we still have maybe about 3 of those nicely labeled bottles. I don't know what they are. I know they're whites, but I don't know what brand they are. And just waiting for those special moments to open it up with my wife.
That's very cool. That's
nice.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
And speaking of special moments, let's give the people a little background on you here.
And let's actually, right before we get deep into it, we are here. What are we here to talk about today?
Right.
So we are here to talk about today, specifically the 5th issue. That's the wrong image. There we go. Shield of the Interceptor. That was the wine. Yes. But this is Shield of the Interceptor. We are on issue number 5 that is currently on Kickstarter. I'm going to add that to the chat for everyone, so you have a clickable link.
Thank you.
And we are, so yes, Jay, as Dallas said, Unstoppable Comics is something like I've been aware of Unstoppable for quite some time. I won't want to say quite some time, like a year, something like that.
Hey,
so a little while.
Yeah.
That. And so when you reached out, I was like, yeah, the JayDee guy and Unstoppable. This is a group and a comic universe I've been meaning to get into for a little bit.
They do good work. You guys do great work.
And I was surprised how much content you guys had already. And I was even more surprised how long you've been around doing this. So y'all predate really 2008, folks. Jay, what came out the gate, as he says in his bio, he didn't so much come out the gate as he tripped and fell flat on his face
100%.
At the beginning, which I want to hear those stories of like how you got started, because 2008, man, it's a number that doesn't seem that far away, but this is really pre-Kickstarter, right? I mean, Kickstarter was, I don't really think it was much of a thing yet. That was more like 2009, 2010 that it actually even began. And it wasn't what it became for comics until more like 2015, 2016 and beyond that. And I even had to remind myself, Jesus Christ, 2008, the first smartphone was happening like in 2007, 2008. Like that was the first iPhone. That was the beginning of all of what we know as reality today. So this was a different world that you were coming out the gate in. So tell us, how did you get started, and what was it like getting a comic universe and a publishing company attempted to be started in this now like different world, like alternate universe that we no longer live in?
Actually, Dave, I want to take it back a step further because I feel a lovely conversation going on. It's going to take us decades. So let's jump even farther back into what your inspirations were. What those things were, those comic properties that lit your fire, if there were any. We're talking about all the IP that we experienced as kids. So what were some of those influences that led you into comics before we get into your professional career in comics?
Dude, it was just comics from the beginning. My father introduced me to comics as a kid. I remember watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Excuse me, it was more animated series. And he would pick up comic books, right? My father passed
so you
away.
did the interesting.
I'm an 80s kid, guys, right? He passed away in 82. I was 6 years old, but I remember him buying comic books. It was whatever was on the newsstand. So Superman, Batman. It was early Power Man and Iron Fist. A couple Spider-Man issues, but I remember more so watching cartoons with him. He passed away. My mom kept me reading comic books because I was reading. I wasn't reading any of the books in school that were part of the curriculum. It wasn't getting to me. But a comic book, right? We go to my grandmother's house, and on the corner there was a little bodega, a corner store, where the guy was selling used comic books for 50 cents a pop. So for $2, I was, that was Toys R Us for me.
You had your curriculum for a month.
Oh, that's it. So it kept me reading, which for her was, yes, it's doing this. But it also kept me off the streets from being an alcoholic. So it served two purposes. From then on, it was just, it became, my addiction, right? It was a good addiction to have because I was reading and I dove into it. In the early 80s, it was still the tail end of the Marvel 25th anniversary promotion. So I was still finding the books with the nice border around it of the characters. It was that crisis period. We were going into that. There was still a lot of Marvel 2-in-1. So there were the Doctor Strange Cloak and Dagger combo books. G.I. Joe was big. Not just the toys, but the comic book line and the TV show was huge. So G.I. Joe comics, we were biting on that. It was the Rick Larianardi, John Romita Jr. years of X-Men. But then we come into what was my series that I would find a continuation for on a regular basis. And these were the Captain America years, the just before the 350. So just right before that U.S. agent storyline, coming out of the 300s. There's one of my favorite books is Cap standing and the flag was bleeding behind him. In the corner box was Abe Lincoln crying. And then
That's a hell of an image.
almost every one of those issues I found consecutively, whether it was on the newsstand. There were comic shops, but they really weren't comic book shops around me. I grew up in East New York. So it was the train stations, it was the bodegas, it was maybe Walden Books where they had a spinner rack. And it was going to Puerto Rico where Walgreens, the pharmacy, they had books on the rack. So
yeah, they did.
Those early Silver Surfer Ron Lim books were I was biting on that also. But one of my grandmothers is Afro Latina, and there is Captain America 334. So you have the introduction of the new team. You had John Walker and you had Lamar Hoskins coming out. But I remember picking it up, and it was this little town in Puerto Rico called Caguas. And we're there. We're shopping for school clothes, right? Because it was the summertime.
Oh, yeah.
And so we found that cover. And then you have, a white guy and a man of color. And again, my grandmother being Afro-Latina, she was like in Spanish, oh, look, one of them looks like you, one of them looks like me. And to have that bonding moment with grandma was just like, that was the closest as a kid I was going to get to a Puerto Rican character. So people will look at the Interceptor, right? And they say, oh, you're just jumping on the trend of Captain America and Falcon. No, I'm jumping on the trend way back when, because
the original inspiration.
Original inspiration, because 2 issues later, he was renamed Battlestar. And he had totally different colors. He had the single star, and it was like, oh my God, the single star reminded me of the flag of Puerto Rico having a single star. So for me, that was the closest I was ever going to get to a Puerto Rican superhero. I was like, we'll do that, right? Because you had White Tiger. Well, I'm no historian, I'm no sociologist, but tigers never existed on the island of Puerto Rico. Neither did the arts. So that didn't do it for me. And then you had Vibe in DC, who was a breakdancing car thief. Not the best role model, but that's what we had,
Right.
So I gravitated towards that. And as I got older, during the Wizard Years, right, you find out the backstories of certain elements. So here's my tie-in to Dwayne McDuffie. He was in the offices at Marvel. Mark Greenwald was writing the Captain America storyline at that time. And Dwayne McDuffie had told him in the office, hey, Bucky's not a good name for this character, even though you're trying to carry on the legacy. Buck is a derogatory term for men of color. He didn't know that. It wasn't whether he wasn't taught it or it didn't travel within his circles. He didn't know, and he genuinely was heartfelt and changed the name. By the second issue that it came out, or the second issue after print from that first moment, he was renamed Battlestar. I was like, oh, so I've got this nice Dwayne McDuffie inspired moment. Nowhere near the 6 degrees of separation, but there's something in there, right? There's inspiration for that. And as I was growing in college, I found out about Taino Indian mythology. I didn't know it existed. That wasn't taught to me by anybody in my family. Right. I was a New Eurekan, right? I was the first in New York. None of my teachers, nobody in school brought that up. All I knew about was Hercules and Thor. Okay. Right. Oh, the people of the Caribbean had their own mythology. What? And I devoured it. And I found this one story that stuck with me. So one of the characters that I would build the Unstoppable Comics universe around was inspired by this mythological story. And you'd figure, okay, that would be my jam, the way to go for me. But selling a minority as an independent in this greater universe of comic books is extra hard, right? I was selling a niche within a niche within a niche.
Oh yeah.
So I built this team of the Storm Chasers, which was kind of like a backdoor way of introducing minorities, but in this greater
wide variety of characters, right? Yeah.
So by issue 5, I introduced a brand new set, and the Interceptor was one of them. I really wanted to go more along the lines of the Three Musketeers with Andre Dumas and being a man of color and going that route. But the sword never worked for me. We watched He-Man, we watched Thundercats.
Yeah.
They had swords, they wielded swords, but they always used it to defend, to block, right? You never saw people get chopped up. So why use a sword? And I brought in the shield. Then I found the hook to King Arthur, right? Maybe this was a shield that was made from the same metal or whatever the case was, as Excalibur. And things just started rolling for me with the Interceptor. And it grew, and I found it was easier to incorporate so many elements of mythology that I was interested in. And I found a hook that worked, and it just built up from there. You know, the Interceptor has so many different fathers, right? So many different inspirations. There's a little bit of He-Man in there. There's a little bit of Thundercats because the shield hides and turns into a ring, right? Magically. Lionel's sword would go from a big blade to a dagger.
FYI, Mum-Ra's misunderstood. Just get the door.
I want to explore that.
I will die on that hill. Go on.
I do.
Oh, he's just a little incel guy. Come on, he never leaves his pyramid. He hates everybody. He wants to destroy them all. He's bitter.
Did you see the way Mum-Ra was re-envisioned in the reboot for?
I have not. No,
wasn't
really.
Brandon on that? One of our old clients, Brandon.
Brandon wrote the first two issues
of this.
That's right.
Yes, dude.
That's right.
Well, I noticed his name right away. I was like, oh yeah, right.
That's so right. I forgot.
We jogged on that, brother. So Brandon wrote the episode of the swordsman, the floating swordsman in that Thundercats reboot.
Right.
But they explored Mum-Ra and you know, the pyramid, and they incorporated tiger sharks and silverhawks into it, and it's just like so I mean, you know, there's so many different elements that I cherry pick.
Jesus.
Yeah, I forgot about the Silverhawk.
I loved them for that short, brief moment of history that they were. It was like they were around for like a year, and they were huge for like 1 to 2 years, and then blipped away and like disappeared forever.
Huge launch.
But damn, I love them.
They had more staying power than the Tiger Sharks did. Tiger Sharks was.
I don't remember the Tiger Sharks.
Tiger Sharks did what, 2 seasons, early 90s, right? We're not even.
Not even.
Not even 2? Oh wow.
Silverhawks only did 2 seasons, I think.
Seasons,
too. I mean, they were all very short. Yeah.
So the Silverhawks' second season incorporated characters like Hot Wing, Flashback, or Black Flash. I forgot what his name was. And then that's when they started to remold the costumes on the toy line. But Tiger Sharks, dude, never made it out the gate. But there was that trilogy. That was the Rankin Bass trilogy, and I never knew
Rankin Bass. Oh.
Yeah. They were the Rudolph.
They were, man. They did great work back in the day.
Yes. So all of that came into this. So you know, I am doing my best to incorporate some of my fanboy elements with telling a logical, entertaining, brand new story.
Which is a great platform to try. Comics is just a great platform for that.
Right.
That's it.
Really.
People don't bat an eye to genre mashing and like taking these disparate pieces from pop culture that you grew up with, mashing them together into something new. And literally every other medium on the planet, you have to convince people why you're combining 2 things, let alone 5 things.
Absolutely.
Right. And then comics is the one medium which I think is part of, I'm not sure a lot of people recognize it as such, but I do secretly suspect it is part of our love for the medium over many others, or like why we keep coming back to it, even though we have movies and TV and they're more affordable and they're easier, you know, in certain ways. It's like we have so much more of it, and comics are such that like hill you have to climb to find them, to buy them, to afford them, to make them. But I think we go back to it because it is this sort of free-for-all medium that doesn't exist anywhere else. And no, everyone's okay with anything you put on that fucking page as long as you make it work, right? And like no one else questions it, and it's wonderful. Yeah.
As long as the money that they spent to buy your book is felt like it was worth it, you're going to get people to come back, right? Because stretching your dollar today is really hard for a lot of folks. Right. And that's one of the things I try to do is not just incorporate, you know, some of my inspirations into this, but also some of the gimmicks. It may sound.
You got to have the gimmicks. Those are the things people can latch on to. You got to have it.
But I love to do trading cards. right? And that's one of the things we do. So this is my 24th Kickstarter campaign.
Wow.
And with every stretch goal I've hit, we've added trading cards. So we've grown the set. We're about maybe 43 to 45 cards, right?
Okay.
And for those who don't want to pick up the set, that's fine. But with certain stretch goals, we've hit 3 stretch goals already. They're going to get 3 trading cards at like no extra charge added to their rewards when they pick it up. Right. Again, it's stretching the dollars out, hopefully, because I know how hard things are. Right. And you want to try to alleviate as many financial barriers of restriction as possible. And knowing you're getting extra goodies in it, that's a bonus for people. You're right. That's okay.
Right.
Okay. I'll take the chance. Right. For those that don't know us and those that do know us. Oh, yeah. I can't wait. Like one of the things we were doing is I don't have frequent flyer miles. Right. I don't have that. Get your 7th cup of coffee free punch card.
Right.
But this is my 24th campaign. So I've got a lot of returning backers. One of the things we do is we premium trading cards.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we do these nice holochrome cards or prismatic foil, prismatic shiny cards that are automatically going into the rewards of anyone who is coming back as a returning backer. And again, it's my way to say thank you, because this is small business, right? Yeah. We're the ones who'll go the extra mile. We're the ones who'll remember you. We're the ones that have fun with you. We're the ones who want to say thank you for helping us get to this point, because I know it's not easy.
All right, so we got the inspirations. Now let's circle back to Dave's question here in terms of that initial project and onboarding into John W.
Welcome, John.
Oh, John.
What was that process? What was that story? What was that process? And was that the first Kickstarter campaign, or did something precede?
So pre-Kickstarter, I was doing ash cans. For those who don't know what ash cans are,
preach.
Yeah, they, small little books.
They used to be ubiquitous. Now you rarely see them.
Right.
But right. They were also known as fanzines. There was a big market for fanzines.
That's true.
A lot of books started as fanzines. Jim Valentino and Eric Larson, when they did Vanguard or Normal Man, they were doing fanzines, right? Stuff that was printed off of your home copier or the Xerox machine in the office, right? And then you just fold up the paper and you hit shows with it. So that is how I started. And then somebody introduced me to print on demand.
Oh yeah.
Right. The company was called Comics Press.
Oh yeah.
It was a little hefty, right, for individual units, but the minimum was 25 copies. Okay. Now I had a printed book, but it was 12 pages. Right. It was like, I can't charge $3 for a 12-page book. Who was I? Dark Horse with their little barbed wire like superhero series, right? Agent Zero X. That's what they were charging for their
or like the Wizard 1/2 issues and things
like
that. Right.
Yes. So I had to learn, and then I went off to Virginia to live my life, and things kind of fell apart there. So I came back home. I'm depressed. I'm in the bed. I don't want to lift my head off with a pillow. My sister, my best friend, were like, you had started this. Why don't you see if you could take another shot at doing this? And it was the second year of the New York Comic Con over here. I was like, okay, let's try this. I know about this and I know about that. Let me see if I can order some copies. I got a booth. And then I slapped together a source book, right? Something like the old Marvel Universe Handbook or DC's Who's Who. So we went out there with the 12-page full-size comics and one 24-page comic book. And we went out there with the first copy of our source book.
Nice. Right?
So it was a pinup, an origin, and some stats and a few shirts, and I came away for the weekend with about $2,000, and I was like,
fantastic!
Oh, right. So I made my table.
First of all, that alone.
Right. That
untested, unproven comic.
How thick was the source book? Was it a much thinner source book? At
Oh
the
yeah,
time?
yeah. It was 24 pages because it was 12 pages of art and 12 pages of filler. Right.
Gotcha.
So
okay, so 12 characters. Okay, kind of a thing.
Right?
Okay.
But my margin was, excuse me, my margin was a lot higher. Yeah, because my investment in the artwork was half.
Yeah.
Right. And that people popped for that. So I was like, okay, and we made contacts and we grew. We did New York Comic Con again. We grew. I learned about offset printing. All right, I started to grow. I read about Kickstarter in the New York Times because somebody was promoting a movie that they were funding through.
Same. I read that. I know exactly the article you're talking
about. All right.
And there were like that handful of like breakout success stories of comics on Kickstarter. Like there was that one like baseball one, like monster baseball or action baseball that made like 6 figures. And it was
monster baseball.
Kickstarter in its infancy.
I didn't know about that one. I had a buddy of mine that had met doing a convention in Boston that was tagging me constantly, right? So the social etiquette of crowdfunding a book hadn't been established yet, but Facebook was there, and I was getting tagged. I'm like, God damn it! I know about your book. I saw you selling it at the show. You keep tagging me at the stage, and then from there, it opened up the doors to seeing other people do it.
Right.
So I tried my hand at my very first Kickstarter campaign, and I fell flat on my face. I didn't know what I was doing.
What year was this approximately? If you can even
2010,
pinpoint
2011?
it.
I want to say 11 or 12.
Okay.
Right? I want to say 11 or 12 because I had met Brandon Easton, who we mentioned him earlier. Brandon's done work on Peggy Carter, Agent Field, Robotech, Transformers, the first season that was on Netflix. Right, they did 3 seasons of a CGI series. So Brandon did. He worked on the first season of that. He wrote a Chinese action flick. I know he wrote the script. I don't know if they pulled the trigger on that.
He never made it, right? Yeah.
I remember that.
Right. He oh my God, he's got a animated series coming out on Max this season that he did the premiere for in New York Comic Con. So, we met Brandon and he was doing work for oh my God, what was the company that merged with Oni? Line Forge.
Yes. Which is now its own thing at this point. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
I believe so.
He came around and whatever, we're chewing the fat, and they're like, if you ever wanted to expand on the Interceptor, I'm like, all right, but brother, I can't afford you. You know what I mean? Your name,
yeah.
And he's like, we can work that out. Let's put something together. And he did the first 2 issues of Shield of the Interceptor. He wrote the scripts for that, and I'm like, all right, we got something. Let's roll.
Yeah.
And I went from there because he blew up.
He blew up. It was inevitable. It was honestly inevitable.
But we still keep in touch. He was at New York Comic Con, like I said, this year, promoting. I keep forgetting the name of the animated series that's coming up on Max, and I apologize, Brandon.
I forget the name of his because we knew him like before he blew up as well, and he had his own comic, The Shadow something. I'm gonna forget the Shadow something, Shadow and it was like the mecha Shadow. What? Say,
was it Shadow Law?
Shadow Law. That sounds possibly right. Let's run with that. So it's Shadow Law, which I think he is now kickstarted as a full trade paperback since then. And not even that long ago. Like I think he got sidetracked with all his actual success, writing other things, and then he's like, now let's come back to this and make a full trade paperback and get it out there. And I loved seeing that finally happen because that was a book that we were on board with him trying to make it happen. Like many, like even before he exploded in other things. But yeah, he's great.
Yeah, because when I remember when the Kickstarter was finishing up, we were talking about different printers who are used. He wanted recommendations because he knows I've learned, right? And that's the thing about comics. That's not something I set out to do. Yeah. I didn't want to know about didn't want to know about the back of the house stuff, but I had to learn about the back of the house stuff if I wanted to stay in business this long.
Right.
Right.
By the way, Brandon's property was called Shadow Law with Arcana.
Arcana.
Okay. All right. Don't hate on me, Brandon.
We couldn't remember either. It's okay. It's okay.
but
he has to hate us all equally.
You got to learn the business if you want to stay alive. So it's not just running the Kickstarter. It's trying to figure out how many plates you can keep spinning.
Yeah.
For as long as possible.
Yeah. That's true.
And not get too,
not get too in your cups while you're trying.
Or find a device that allows you to keep the plate spinning.
Yeah.
For me, it's chocolate.
Oh my God.
Chocolate. Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So we're up to, you said 24 Kickstarters now.
I've done 24 Kickstarters. I haven't always succeeded. The very first one, I fell flat on my face. Then I was getting my sea legs, and then the second one that I failed at was I think my 11th or 12th campaign, because there's something called a dead zone in a campaign, right? And it's you plateau. Yeah. There's no movement. So I planned a vacation during that dead zone, and the vacation spot that we went to, there was no service. So I could not do anything. I didn't know what was going on. And by the time I came back from the vacation, there was no way to salvage the campaign.
Right.
And I was like, right? Smack. Then this last year, we had a couple of hiccups. So my brother-in-law passed away in July, and my uncle passed away the same night. And it was there was a campaign I had just started, and I'm like, I can't focus on giving the folks who have supported me this long the attention they need when I got to give the attention to my family.
Yeah,
right.
So I canceled that campaign. Then, things were coming back together. I did the New York Comic Con, and I was planning to do Shield of the Interceptor coming out of New York Comic Con. But one of the books I have is New York versus the World. That's a zombie book set in New York City. And we did gangbusters with those two issues at New York Comic Con. So I'm like, I'm going to swap things up. I'm going to ride that momentum.
Right.
And I'm going to run the New York versus the World campaign. But I didn't do the proper ramp up going into it. And we were going into the holidays on that one, and it didn't fulfill. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So we took the rest of the year to just, reset, restructure, and build this up. And, we've got our releases coming for this year. So I've got 4 book releases. All the books are already done. This is the first one. And I don't know if you guys know about action figures at all. But
no, I was going to add. So this was one of my questions because we started off talking about action figures and us growing up with them. And I noticed on the campaign, there are no action figures at this point.
Yeah,
so I was like, have you done action? Are you planning to do action figures?
Oh, it's coming. And we showed them off at Comic-Con this year.
Beautiful.
But we showed them off at the 1/18th, approximately 4-inch scale, because that was my jam. But we're supersizing them to 6 inches.
No way.
Yeah. So we're going to start off with the Shield of the Interceptor. We're going to try to get him funded first. And if he's funded, then
he's such a perfect action figure. Yeah. I mean, he's with his shield for F's sake. I mean, it is perfect for
the accessories. Figure. You need the accessories, right?
Yes.
So if we hit the goals on that, we will unlock the ability to hopefully get to another figure and then go from there, because they're expensive. And trying to figure out that business is a hell of a lot tougher than trying to figure out comic books.
Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to launch that in March, but apparently factories closed down for the entire month of February because of Chinese New Year, and getting final quotes and everything together, it's just not going to happen. So I'll finish that up in March. We'll do another book then, because we should be fulfilling Shield of the Interceptor number 5 at that point. And after that campaign, we will do the Shield of the Interceptor action figure.
Fantastic. Sweet. Action figures coming, guys.
Yeah.
You knew it was again, to requote myself, it was inevitable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for those of you for those watching, if you are new to Jay and to the Interceptor comic, this is and we have a Granada C who's with us. Hey, what's up, guys? Hello, Granada.
Nice.
Welcome. Yeah. So if anyone is new that's watching, and if you're a Wine and Comics viewer, you may be new to Jay and you may be new to the Interceptor. So this is a comic that is steeped in, I know he looks like Captain America, and that's why when we talked earlier, he got the Captain America and the Falcon reference.
There's Americana all through this.
Exactly. Yeah. But the actual backstory of this character is a very, very different story. This is steeped in Arthurian mythos. And, Arthur was always a part of the Fae and the fairy world. So you also get, and a lot of you might recognize a lot of these terms and names as a Shakespearean mythos in its way, like Midsummer's Night's Dream, because we have
your
Oberon. We have right. Who's the who in Midsummer's Night's Dream? Not Bottom. The other. Who's I'm forgetting the name of the guy who Oberon. This whole thing started because Oberon was
Puck?
Puck. Yes, yeah. Puck. Thank you. Yes. So this whole thing starts, and then of course, so there are the fairy mythos that's and the sort of politics and the scheming.
You get a lady in the lake. Gotta have a lady in the lake.
You've got, so it's almost like this Greek pantheon style of gods, but it's all the fairy gods, right? And like all of this is steeped in what's been going on there, how the Interceptor comes to have the shield, which has a name, Pride Winter, that was forged by the fairy blacksmith Kulkin. Am I getting that name right?
I thought it was Kulan.
Kulan. There we go.
Kulan,
No, I think you're right. I was going off of the comment.
I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
I am not well versed in these things.
It's okay.
Either.
It's okay. I'm learning. When I was doing my research for this, not that I went deep into it, right? But I was trying to look up, was there a shield? And I never found any reference for that. I found King Arthur.
Yes, you did. You found that one reference that's hidden in the back of a secret library, which is no more. You did. You found it. There you go.
He's like, I gotta change my story.
Really? I gotta talk to you guys what's going on afterwards, because I've got the next 2 arcs like scripted, and it's just like, was that you that hacked my system the other day?
There you go.
But I found out, like in the research, also there was a lot of Christianity that was involved in this. So I wanted to shy away from some of that stuff because people become very zealous, and I'm like, all right, we're going more with the mythos. But the Lady of the Lake had about maybe 7 different names, so that's why they're in the book. There's a coven of witches that
cute. I like that.
And that's a recurring theme from many cultures. Yeah, so that's pretty consistent.
Yeah. So we worked that in, and each one of the women in this coven blessed the shield with a gift after it was forged, right? So our character, the Interceptor, David Flynn, is not somebody who is super strong automatically, but when he became the bearer of the shield, he was bequeathed these gifts, right? So you have things like the agility, right? The enhanced strength,
right?
The ability to fight like anyone who has been to the Isle of Avalon.
Well, and I snuck a peek at his power chart in the guidebook, right? And I was like, Jesus God. I was like, okay, this is not just Captain America. This guy's something else.
But does he have access to it, right? Does he know how to use it? So that's the key, right? And I'm playing him like you would play Superman or Captain America. It's not that they are this infallible character, but you place them in those moral quandary situations, right? You test their morality. And that's how you can maybe gain some affinity from those that are reading it, right? Oh, would I have made this choice? Would I have made that choice? Right?
I would have been, as a character, I am so much more credulous than this guy too. Like everywhere, like every time he's being told something by the gods, I'm like, okay. And then he's like, he's so standoffish about everything. He's like,
yeah, no, that's me.
He's like,
I'm
no,
that. I'm
yeah,
like,
exactly. That's
sure.
Alex. And I'm
Okay.
like, oh, right. Question things. Oh, I forget about that. And I'm just like going with the flow. And I'm like,
See,
oh
I
yeah,
don't
this
even see it
guy,
like
I
that.
would
I see it
fail
as-
in
I'm
this
like, I'll be
story.
back. Give me a day. I'll be back. I need to do some research.
But that's the New Yorker to me, right? That's the everyone's always trying to run a scam on me. So
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah.
throw shade on it. But yeah, it is Captain America also, but it's just along those parallel lines, right? Whereas Captain America is here in the States, he's based in the UK. Whereas Captain America's shield comes from science, our shield here comes from magic.
Right.
Whereas Captain America, is a white guy, the Interceptor is a man of color, right? And then as we dive into Avalon, I'm treating Avalon more like Asgard was in the Marvel movies,
Yes.
right? It was this place of multi-ethnicity. So you'll learn in the series why he was chosen by Queen Titania to carry this, to be the one that finds the shield, right? And I love being able to play with it, because by not using Excalibur, I'm not bound by those rules,
right?
But I'm able to play in that sandbox.
I think another thing to your credit, which is going to.
We also have Champ Ramirez. I'm not 100% sure.
Ramirez.
Champe did the colors for
cool.
Shield of the Interceptor number 5. Yes.
Welcome.
And
hello.
And Granda did he did some
Jay's
of
sales
our
pitch for
pieces.
the Interceptor and convention.
Yes. Yeah, so what is your sales pitch?
What is your sales pitch?
Is it what you've already said, or something else?
Yeah, it's a little bit of what I said. It's using the parallel lines of Captain America, right? I love to call it my white chocolate theory, because it's not chocolate, right? But it's not fudge either. But they say it's white chocolate, so that way they can get people to buy it.
I get into fights all the time with people who enjoy white chocolate, because one, it's not chocolate, so go away, people. But yes, I understand.
It's not. It's great. It's fudge, and don't buy fudge at conventions because they melt way too quickly.
Exactly.
And they're gonna ruin your books.
That's right.
But the thing is,
it is made with cocoa butter, guys.
Yeah, but it's not chocolate. Yeah, you know what else is made with cocoa butter?
In white chocolate. It's chocolate lotion. Then it is chocolate lotion.
Quiet it down. Mute. Where's the mute button? Sorry, Jay. Go on.
No, they taste good. Either way, they taste good. Right, if you rub a little bit on,
smells good. I don't know about the taste. I don't know about the taste of the lotion, but it smells good.
Well, you know what? It's funny. My lip balm is cocoa butter.
Yeah, it's a great.
There you go. There you go. So you get a little bit of that. And quick question: the Interceptor, right? Is that a term from the mythology? Because that was a word where I was like, oh, Interceptor and Arthurian mythos and fairy legends. Is Interceptor a term that came from that, or is that your own invention?
No, I love the car from Mad Max. That's it.
Okay,
that's it. I thought it was a badass name, and it was originally titled just The Interceptor. But then Heavy Metal Magazine and Grant Morrison had a book called The Interceptor. I was like, oh, okay, I can't fight that battle financially. So let me define it a lot more. And that's why the full title, which I can protect, is Shield of the Interceptor, right? So that's it's right there on the cover, right? What it's about. It's about him, right? Could we say Ring of the Green Lantern to maybe understand that a little bit more? But if we could, it would have been along those lines. So the Interceptor for our story was a certain amount of knights that were in Avalon that were dedicated just to Queen Titania. And when you read the story, you find out who those knights were, which one of them betrayed the group, what happened to them when they betrayed the group, and why ultimately Interceptor was chosen to be the one to find the shield eventually. So it's just taking everything that I loved growing up and finding ways to not just cherry pick, but logically formulate an entertaining story.
Yeah. And on the subject of one thing that this character reminded me of a little bit too, and I think they went through a similar name battle for this character, which is ironic. But if you remember that, I think it was Carlco or one of those older school, and then DC bought the rights and it became Impact Comics, but the Shield characters from that. Do you remember this character? And they had to call the new comic Legend of the Shield because I think of Marvel's Shield. or something of that nature. Like they couldn't call it what it used to be back in the 40s. They were like, oh, now we're going to have a legal battle. Or, we'll fight it. We might win, but we'd have to fight it. So they were like, F it. We're just going to call the new comic Legend of the Shield. No one's just going to call him Shield.
So that was in the 90s when Archie came back and started to do that whole red circle thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember when that came out and it was the Fly and the Comet.
Yeah, Comet. Yep.
And what the Jaguar. So I remember that coming around. I just wasn't into it. I was bought those books. I was bought NFL Super Pro. But those weren't the books for me.
Yeah.
So I really didn't dive into that. But as you go about and you weave your way within comic books, not just the mythology, but the backstories and the business, you find out about these legal battles, right? So a bigger one would be the whole Captain Marvel Shazam thing between Marvel and DC.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, that is the name battle that I think defines everything else. You could win, but you go out of business.
Right. Captain Marvel did predate Marvel Comics, but it would have been tooth and nail at that point. So
and then you add the extra layer of it being reproduced in the UK, right? Where you get the Marvel Man, and then can you bring it back? And then the rights, the rights to that whole situation were still being battled up until 5 or 10 years ago with the whole Neil Gaiman and McFarlane and Marvel stuff, right? And I mean,
Mr.
you
Miracle
find out that
Captain Marvel,
1462 was a comic book miniseries devised just to help Neil Gaiman fight Todd McFarlane, right? For the whole Marvel Man thing. And that goes all the way back to the roots of the whole Captain Marvel Shazam fight. And it's like, goddamn, comic books.
I know.
Comic books got some shade thrown at each other.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, at least comics, like these things do tend to work themselves out one way. I mean, even though the money involved, like, people like things like you create whole series just to pay for your stupid legal bills. Right. But it's so much better. Like me and Dallas are in sort of the film TV world now. And like, it breaks my heart the number of films that have like gone off the radar and have not come back because of a rights issue. And it's like, it's just never released again. And you're like, that's insane. Like you can't reprint it. You can't find old copies. You can't, technically you're even getting it online. It's been out of circulation for so long. Like people don't even have a good copy of that to like pirate it on torrents or anything. Like it's just gone until this is resolved. But movie studios don't care enough to ever resolve it. They're just like, it's a movie. We have tens of thousands of titles. So like we're like, screw it. Don't worry about it. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. It's just in limbo for the rest of our lives. And like, so because, I am,
yeah. I mean, it's not just that. How many scripts go, right, poof, right after they've been completed, after they've been worked and noted and readjusted to comply with those notes. Comic books, you don't have as many of those problems, right? You got a smaller team, and if you're stubborn enough, you can complete your project. Right. With cinema, live action or animation, there are just so many levels you got to go through. I would love to see an animated series of Shield of the Interceptor. And if you go to the campaign, the opening video, you'll find an animated sequence illustrated by Chapter Ramirez here in the chat. And I would love to explore a series of 5 to 10 minute episodes that lead into a larger narrative, right, just on YouTube, because you know what, I'll keep control and I can use the numbers to help me establish how many people are watching this, right, and trade upon it. But it's expensive, right? I mean, when I was looking into getting legit, animated series quotes, I was getting quoted, anywhere between $900 to $1,200 per second, and I'm like,
yes.
That's
actually not a bad rate.
Really?
Yes, 100%. I mean, animation, people ask us all the time because we're in like the LA Hollywood sphere, and they're like, well, what about animation? And I just like shake my head. I'm just like, no. I'm like, you don't want to, unless you are an animator or your best friend is an animator that's going to slave some extra hours on the weekend for you.
Or an animation studio owes you some favors.
Right. A short sort of proof of concept, something like even I remember when The Goon, Eric Powell's The Goon, you're familiar with that comic, I'm assuming. They were doing just a proof of concept for the Hollywood studios to like shop around. and they had to raise something like $250,000 on Kickstarter to make a short proof of concept. They raised it, they did it. But I mean, just that, like, this is just our example animation to show you how it would look so we can pitch it to you. Cost them $250,000. It's insane. I mean, it's like no real, like, normal people can't play in those pools. It's just,
you can't.
It's beyond our ability.
Normal people are the ones who, or excuse me, the creative folks, right? The ones who have the drive are the ones who are oh my God, I'm cross between engineering and intuitive. They're ambitious enough to explore different concepts to try to push it, right? They're willing to spend that extra to get it done. And creators' rights is always a big thing, right? With me, it's if I can get that together, right? What I was talking about, it's not to pitch to anybody, it's to use it as the top of the funnel to bring people back to my core product, right? Because I will make the money back eventually through sales of our shirts or any other merchandise, associated material.
I mean, talking about like Todd McFarlane and Spawn and the animated series that went on HBO for Spawn, right? I mean, there's been no going back for Todd McFarlane and how popular that universe is from the day that animated series dropped on HBO. I mean, that was like, and it only ran 2 short seasons, but everyone saw it. 3. Okay, so but
I got the DVDs.
There you go. So I mean, it exploded. He was popular by comic terms before then, and then after that, maybe the movie helped as well. That's a question. How much the feature film helped, but that animated series was actually admired, and it. And he is still reaping those benefits of name recognition, both for the character, the comics, and him ever since.
Not just that animated series, but he had a video game through Capcom, and it was a fighting game.
Yes.
And in the aftermarket is an expensive game that it was only on the Sega Dreamcast. It could go upwards to $200 right now in the aftermarket, and it was done by Capcom. And I think this was Capcom's first fighting game, which changed camera positioning throughout the fight.
Perspective,
and it also had that 4-person GoldenEye battle sequence, that you could do with other people in the room.
Right.
So Todd always talked about the 4 pillars, right? The comic, the animated series, the toy line, and whether it was live action or animated series. The toys, the video game, the comic, and either the live action or the animated series. And he got both of them, right? Yeah. He had all 5. Yeah. And that foundation took him to what he is today. Right? That is the gold standard, whether people are willing to admit it or not. Right? We know about all the times he was rejected. We know about the hundreds and hundreds of letters because he showed it to us. We know about his perseverance. But he came out in the 90s, and comic books were totally different.
Yes,
they are not what they are today. Right? Comic books were still selling in the hundreds of thousands per units for the lower tier titles. There were
indie creators. I've spoken to them that came up in the late 80s and into the 90s, and they quit comics when they were only selling a few thousand copies.
Yeah.
And like nowadays, that's success to an indie creator today, right? That's a whopping success. And they're like, oh, only 2,500 copies. I'm just gonna leave this field. Like now it's not even worth it to me anymore, because they could sell tens, if not hundreds of thousands of copies, and much easier than we do today. That happens today, but it is a rarity today versus it was kind of par for the course.
I'll offset 2,000 units of books, and that'll carry me through conventions and Kickstarters and stuff like that. And moving the last ones are still tough for an indie guy.
Right. And actually on that note, speaking of Kickstarter, Dave, do we have some business we need to conduct? Maybe since we broke
some
with
ad reading.
Maybe.
Are we talking about, should we do a quick ad read? And then when we come back from the ad read, we do have one actual question. Ask Jay about pizza. So we're going to ask Jay about pizza right after that. But yes, we also, just so everyone knows, we're going to head over and check out Jay's Kickstarter page after he tells us about pizza, right after this break. But we have our own Kickstarter. Our very first one is on Kickstarter as of right now. So ArmageddonQuest.com. I'm going to put this in the chat here so everyone has a link that they can click on. But Armageddon Quest, let me tell you guys, this is an actual 1980s classic underground black and white comic book by a guy named, yes, very old school. This is around the time of the black and white Eastman and Laird TMNT. And it is like people who remember this comic, and there are not many, which is why we're bringing it back. Love this comic. So it's been out of print for over 25 years. We're now bringing it back. New covers, new logo, new design. It's actually, for the first time, going to be published in its actual size and format, which was an awkward size because the creator he just created the comic. He wasn't trying to get it Marvel to pick it up. So he didn't give a shit what size the pages were. So even the old printings that are now all out of print were always in the standard American comic size and always had these big white bars. It wasn't great. So we're fixing all of that on these new editions. But Armageddon Quest is the actual coming-of-age story of the Antichrist.
The reluctant
He's a reluctant Antichrist. He's a nice kid.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't want to hurt anybody. Doesn't want to end the world. But he is the Antichrist.
Doesn't want to hurt anybody. Doesn't want to end the world, but hurts people and kind of ends the world, but maybe not.
Kind of. So, we'll see. So the world wants him to be what they say he is, right? They're like, you have a prophecy to fulfill. You know, the Christians want him to be the villain that he's supposed to be. The Satanists want him to be the hero that he's supposed to be to them. And it does all culminate in the event of Armageddon, where he has some very tough decisions to make. But this is we're going to share a couple of images here. Yeah. But this is the wraparound cover by Angela Odling for Armageddon Quest Book 1. This is the alternate wraparound cover. This is the main cover by the original creator, Ronald Russell Roach. Colors by Matta Sorcier, who is the creator of Sacrimony on Kickstarter, if you guys have seen her work around. New logo by Reed Hinckley Barnes. We even got, if any of you are familiar with the writer Russell Noelty, who has done a lot of comics like Ichabod Jones' Monster Hunter, The Cthulhu is Hard to Spell anthologies. He drew a cover for us because he does do art as well as a writer. It's this wonderful garage underground art as a writer. So he also did an alternate cover here of Armageddon Quest. Now, all of these art styles fit perfectly for this comic because these are some of the actual pages of the comic here we're going to show you. And it is this glorious, I mean, if you love TMNT from Eastman and Laird, Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo, even a little bit of like early Robert Crumb is in here. And by the way, guys, this is not safe for work. It does have the early Robert Crumb element to it. Do not buy it for your kids. Buy it for yourself, though.
Unless you want them to turn into the Antichrist.
But this is this first issue, 52 pages. And here's a little picture, too, as you can see, like the old version over here on the left versus the new version where we're getting it in its proper size over there on the right. And we even have one of my favorite things that we have, the top tier that you can get are the first 10 copies off the printer that will come with this special book plate printed on the inside front cover that none of the other copies will have. These will be the very first 10, the first in over a quarter century of this comic being printed, and it will be hand numbered 1 through 10. So only 10 available. I believe 3 are gone and 7 are left for those of you who are interested. And once again, that is ArmageddonQuest.com. And let me, I think, and we do have t-shirts as well. This is the safe for grandma version of the t-shirt, where it's I'm on Team Tazio. And then we also have, maybe I didn't upload an image, but there is also I'm on Team Antichrist, which is, if you want to offend people, the not safe for grandma version, that one is there. And he is easy on the eyes for a dark Messiah. So yeah, that is our Armageddon Quest, ArmageddonQuest.com. We would love for you to go check it out.
Please check it out.
Classic 80s comic. We're so happy that we're going to find a new audience for this book because it is so near and dear to my heart. If you go to the Kickstarter page too, there's a 12-minute brief history of Armageddon Quest that plays in the middle of the campaign page.
So it's live?
The creator... It is live. Yes, we're in the middle of the campaign. I think we have 13 days left, and we just got past our halfway funded, so we're right on track for everything. One of the things you mentioned, Jay, that I did want to mention about this as well. Oh, and by the way, that QR code in the corner, which I haven't mentioned at all, that takes you to our campaign as well. So you can go ahead and click that QR code, and that'll take you there. But one of the things you mentioned, Jay, was that middle slog, through every campaign where everything just sort of gets really slow. You can't do nothing, but at the same time, it's pulling teeth just to get that like one extra backer.
100%. Yep.
100%. Well, one of the things I have noticed, and I think this is why if you don't do anything during that middle slog, even if your money and backer numbers aren't going up super high or in any significant way, I've noticed, and maybe you can tell me if you've ever noticed this, my followers on the campaign keep going up. So it's like the people who are waiting to those last 2 days, right? Where it's like the last 48 hours, you're going to get this flood of activity. Right. And I'm like, so the one thing that makes me feel good is even when it's like something goes a little bit viral on social media, gets a lot of reshares, gets a lot of this, some bigwigs in the comic world suddenly start resharing it and commenting on it. And I'm like, yay. And I go to my campaign page a couple hours later and I've gone $10 up. And I'm like, damn it. But then I go check out my followers and I've gained like 1 to 2 dozen followers. And I'm like, okay, that's better. I'm okay with this. Let's see what happens. But did want to comment on that.
No, this is a great comment because one of the psychological elements that a lot of us noticing are folks will tend to sit back until they see a campaign is funded.
Yes.
Right. And when they see a campaign is funded, they'll go, oh, okay, now I'll put my money in. Without understanding, hey, we need your money to get this funded, right? And it's one of those which comes first, chicken or the egg kind of things.
Right.
And trying to wrestle that concept onto our side to get them, it's the hard part, right? That comes with consistency, that comes with building the consumer base. In my total campaign lifespan, I've had over 751 people back me through the various campaigns. I don't even have 10% of those people right on this current campaign. And it's like, okay, where you play Monday morning quarterback so much when you do this. And you're trying to figure out where you went wrong, what faults are happening, where can you course correct, what kind of second half adjustments can you make at the end of this campaign. And sometimes you realize, oh, I've done 7 different genres. So the people who like this one may not like that one, right? You look at the other campaigns that are going on and you're like, well, my story structure is built similarly to this person and they're doing, 300% more than I am. Why? Right. And then you try to find some of the people who are out there doing this, right? The live stream promotions. This is the key. This does more for you than taking out Facebook ads, taking out Instagram ads, taking out Twitter ads. And we're introducing each other to each other's audience and vice versa.
That's right.
Okay. You could do somebody's campaign where, somebody's live stream where they can have 10,000 followers, but you may get 2 sales from it during the campaign. Yet you could do somebody's live stream that they have 20 followers, but you'll get 10 people to back their campaign. And it's like, oh, okay. You don't know where you're going to get those hits from.
You don't.
Which audience is going to, fall in line with your product. But you do them all the same. So like you take that wrestling adage. I don't know if you guys are into wrestling at all, but they say whether you're working at a gym for 10 people or you're working in an arena for 10,000 people, you're still going to wrestle your ass off.
That's right.
Right? Yep. And you always put your best foot forward. So many times people come to me at cons and they're like, oh, you're always on. You never take a beat, right, for yourself. And it's like, no, because you never know who you're going to meet, right? And you want to give everyone the same type of respect and interaction because you don't want to deny anyone not just the opportunity to meet you or to create a sale, but you don't want to take away their experience because they put down their 2 bits to be at a convention just like anybody else did. Right.
Yes,
and ask
and then ask for their mask.
Then ask for the mask.
so that's one of my brothers, right? One of my lifetime brothers there. We did a very small wrestling show in Dallas, Texas, and the guys were putting their heart out, and he got bombed. He got he got bombed, and here's a wrestling show going on, and
was he the heel?
No, he wasn't the manager. He was in the audience, just like me.
Oh.
And he just walks up to the ring, rests on the apron, and he's so bummed. He's trying to talk to the guys while they got a match going on. He's like, "I want your mask.
Wow.
I want your mask." And it's just like, dude, they're gonna beat they're gonna beat your ass. And we're trying to bring him back. No, I want his mask. He said he's gonna get me the mask. So during the intermission of the wrestling show that's going on, he goes into the locker room, and here we are, we're George acting with everybody, we're having fun, we're drinking beers, and he hasn't come out of the locker room yet. And we're like, oh, they beat his ass. They beat his ass. Right? We gotta go to the back to save him. We get to the door, and here he comes. He's bombed. He's got his arm around one of the wrestlers, and he's wearing the fucking mask. Excuse me. He's wearing a mask. And we're like, oh my God. Oh my God. And it was a moment. But these moments come from comic books, right? and had we not been doing comic books, we wouldn't have been at that event, because we were doing some crush promotion there. And that's one of the things we spoke at the very beginning about synergy. Right? That cross promotion. And you never know who you're going to find that is into your stuff. So whenever an opportunity pops up, okay, you take advantage of it.
It's forward momentum. Absolutely.
That's it, man. Absolutely. That's it.
Let me see. It's Kenrick here. Hello, Kenrick, or Deadman 1070. But hello, Kenrick. Glad to see the first 10. Yes, Kenrick gave me the idea of the first 10 because they sold out like gangbusters for him. So, yes, I totally swiped it from him. He gave me his blessing to do that. But that's the other thing when you interact with all the other creators is like,
that collective knowledge.
Trust me, other people have great ideas out there that you're going to want to do that you won't come up with on your own. So definitely do that. And yes, Dios mío,
comics satánicos.
Yes,
indeed, indeed. Yes. And then we also have Carlos Rafael. Hey, fellas, hello, Carlos. Welcome,
what's up,
welcome.
Baby?
And Robert. Hey, Jay, Richie's nephew. Good to see you doing.
Man? That's my cousin's son, Richie's nephew. Robert, what's up? My love to the girls. All the best, baby. All right? Yeah.
Okay, so Jay.
Yes.
I have to ask you about pizza.
I'm a pizza snob. I am a New York pizza. Listen, 99-cent pizza here in New York City is better than any pizza anywhere else in the rest of the world, brother. I'm sorry.
I would say, bar none, absolutely across the board, absolutely that statement would stand up 5 years ago.
Oh, don't play me.
I'm just saying. I think
Dallas, where you at right now? We spoke about where we're from. Where you at right now, brother?
I'm pretty sure he's in near your city, actually, Jay. He's in New York right now.
You're in Jersey? Are you a Jersey? Are you a Jersey guy? Because Jersey and New York fight, bro.
No. I'm just saying. I think some of those standard places that were like in the pocket for decades, some of those places because of maybe COVID, because of the economy, some of the nuance, the je ne sais quoi, is kind of just seeping away. I'm just not intentionally. Maybe it's just
I get it because you know what I want to say. You know what I'm gonna say because I'm biased and because I have a chip on my shoulder that you've been influenced by the TikTok reels and the Instagram food critics and the people who don't know because I'm walking around and I got a free Metro card, so let me go see what's trending right now. Get out of here with that, bro. Now you're pulling the New Yorker out of me right now, Dallas.
Now, what I say, Jay, would you be happy though if the rest of the world could start to step up and become as good as New York?
No, because no matter what they do, they're never going to come close. They're never going to come close.
What's your order? What's your late night walking home? What's your late night walking home?
What's my late night walking home? So my late night walking home. All right, I am in a part of Brooklyn where I am. I got Howard Beach to the left of me. Yeah. So if anybody saw Goodfellas, that's there, right? I got Canarsie to the right of me. Yeah. If anybody saw Goodfellas, that's there.
It's there.
I got Bensonhurst about 15 minutes from me. I got one of the greatest areas in all of New York City that is still undiscovered. There's a part of Brooklyn, all right, the Bushwick, Greenpoint area is a mix of old Puerto Rican, Dominican, Latinos, old school Italians, old school Polish, old school Jewish. Okay, right off of the Williamsburg Bridge, south side of Brooklyn is one of the greatest areas in all of New York City, and it is still untouched. You will find authenticity in almost any corner of whatever family that you are looking to eat with out there. Okay. There's this place. So Bushwick is where my grandmother lived. That's where we went every weekend. I know pizza. There is a place on Metropolitan off of Graham Avenue, Carmine and Sons, and just we mentioned, or Robert, his uncle Richie, again, one of my brothers. He will come from Dallas to go there. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay. Don't get me wrong. There's some places that try creative elements, like black truffle, with steak.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
Those are fine. Yeah.
If you want something different,
no
problem. Okay. But you know what? You want authenticity? I'll take you to a real Italian place. Well, they'll give you the tricolor grandma, and it is, our grandma is bread, cheese, sauce. Okay. And you'll have bread, cheese, sauce with marinara, olive vodka, and pesto with real pepperoni, not that sliced Hormel thing. Where it's small, the size of a quarter, and the real char, not the firewood oven. Real char will curl up that pepperoni and give you that nice yellow crust on it. Oh my God. All right. Then you got L&B and Spumoni's in Coney Island, where again that is a nice tart sauce, bread, cheese sauce. They sell it by the half pie because you're gonna waste money just buying a slice because you're gonna go buy another one. And it's called a slice. It's not called a pizza, right? It's called a pizzeria, or you're getting a pie. You're getting a slice, or you're getting a Sicilian. Now, let me get a square. No, you're getting a slice, or you're gonna get a Sicilian. All right. There's this one place I went to that we deconstructed a Big Mac and we put it on the pie. So then why the hell am I going to buy that? I'm going on the block and get a McDonald's. You know what I mean?
I don't know. That actually sounds really interesting.
No,
I would want to try it. I would want to try it.
Give me a burger. If I want a burger, give me a fucking burger.
No. I think the pizza version would be better than the actual Big Mac. So that would be why I would like
How do I cancel myself from
I know, right?
No.
Better than the Big Mac, not better than the normal
Big Mac's
pizza.
correct, but a great burger is a great burger.
Right. The non-Big Mac pizza might still be the better pizza, but the Big Mac pizza would still be better than the Big Mac.
But then, bro, I'll see a place. Oh, we threw mozzarella sticks on it. There's no ingenuity in that. There's no ingenuity there, right? So now there's this place in Long Island that I go to that is called Marinata's. It is one of the best specialty slices I've ever had, and they do their buffalo chicken slice. All right, so you got bite-sized pieces of buffalo chicken. You got your bread, right? But then they do a buffalo, they do a blue cheese ranch sauce. Okay, a garlic butter crust. I never advocate using a fork and a knife with a slice. No, you don't do that.
Except for this one.
Except for this one, because the chunks of buffalo chicken are so heavy. You need to get them off and eat them before you fold up that whole slice, right? So that's that. Don't get me wrong. I'll try one of these experimental slices because I'm sorry, they came from California and they saw something as TPK. Oh, we can do something over here.
Right.
But
I feel like someone who came from California though they shouldn't do a Big Mac. They should be way too health conscious for that. But outside of that,
but so when it comes to that, I am a pizza snob. Don't get me started on Chicago. That's not pizza. Don't get me going with Detroit. I don't know what the hell that is, because Detroit is,
I do love me a Detroit. I mean, not as much as the classic New York style, but I've learned to really enjoy a Detroit slice. It's very different. It's its own thing.
You said the right thing at the wrong moment, bro. You said a Detroit slice. No, and then you said a New York pizza.
That's true.
No,
that's true, because Detroit's a square, right? It's always a square.
No, but you want to say a slice. You come to New York, you don't got to say New York slice. Let me get a slice. All right.
By the way, you're real passionate about this, so I'm assuming this pizza and these restaurants work themselves into a future issue somewhere. There's got to be a fight in the pizzeria.
Oh yeah, do they get to make guest appearances?
Got to be a fight in the pizzeria.
If they want, you know what I mean?
He's like, they gotta pay me. He's like, hey now, I'm a businessman. they gotta sponsor that shit.
Funny enough, the Interceptor's home life. We introduced that in issue number 5, and his family owns a restaurant, but it's not a pizzeria, right? His taking from life. So for me, Brooklyn is the greatest place in the world. I talked about those parts of Bushwick, where I grew up in my end of East New York, right? We got Howard Beach here. We got Canarsie here. On the other side, over the water at Howard Beach, you got Far Rockaway. Far Rockaway, and then over here on Liberty Avenue, there's a huge West Indian community. And you just grow up in it, right? You don't explain, you know. And elements of that have made its way into the Interceptor. So yes, he grew up in England, but his family is from the West Indies, right? And that's, we say the West Indies, but me also being a historian, I love the Caribbean. But the Caribbean is really broken up between the upper and the lower Antilles, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's the Antilles. It doesn't matter whether it's Jamaica, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, the Dominican island, Guyana, right? St. Thomas, St. Croix. They're all part of the Antilles.
Right.
So how do I take what I know, what I studied in college, and bring that into this as well, to add that authenticity, right? So I have been questioned, what do I know about writing a story about a man of color? Well, are there certain elements I can't tell in the story? 100% absolutely correct. Yes. Are there certain elements that I know, that I've trained for, that I've studied all my life, that I can tell with authenticity, with love, with growing up through those environments and incorporate into that here? Oh, fucking yeah. Excuse me.
That's right. That's right. No, you're right.
And I do it with pride, and I defend it with pride also.
Good.
Right? Again, I mentioned one of my grandmothers, Afro-Latina. I'm like, skip Puerto Rican dude. You'll never know, right? Unless I bring it up, unless I show pictures. But I shouldn't have to, right? It's coming out in my pride, who I am, in the culture, and what I'm bringing to the table. And you know what? In this arc, we're bringing the Interceptor into Puerto Rico. So his path is to find the relics that are coming from mixed mythological origins.
There we go.
And keeping it out of the hands of our big bad Oberon, because he's looking to amass power, right? So that's his course in this. And that first stop is going to be over here in Puerto Rico. There's this great carving in the town of Isabela on a mountainside of one of the caciques, the chiefs, right? His name was Mama de Maca. And if anybody knows the story about Masada, it's a similar story. He defended the natives from the privateers. They were really conquistadors, but they were, they weren't pirates. They were the privateers. He defended them as they went off into the mountains, right? That's it. But I'm a comic book guy. How can I embellish on that story and bring that into this, right? We've got elements that these people knew how to manipulate gold without forges. How did that happen? All right. Let me take the comic book science mythological element and incorporate that into the story. And that brings them here. And we'll bring in elements of some of the gems from Avalon that made its way to Queen Isabella's court, that made its way into Columbus's dowry, right? That he ended up paying his people with, right? And that's how we bring those elements together here. And Oberon has set his sights on it. And Oberon is trying to keep that relic out of this dastardly villain's hand.
He doesn't end up zip landing in El Yunque with the tourists, does he?
Oh, it is in Morobis, sir. It is in Morobis, the largest zip line out there. Yeah. And I know that because that is where I spent every summer as a child.
Nice.
Yeah, brother. Nice. Yes, but are elements of the Junke built into this?
Yeah.
Yes. And we are going to be exploring some of that
Good,
within
good.
the story, right? So if you read Brandon's issue, one of the great things that Brandon did was set the tone for actual factual events that we expand upon, right? We embellish upon. Okay. So I'm using that story of Mama the Maka, the real events.
Right.
I'm bringing that out here, right? I love the Watchmen series on Max.
Yeah.
I loved how they took the events of the unfortunate events of the Tulsa massacre, right?
And wove it into the narrative. Yeah, absolutely.
And move it into the geek and culture space.
That's right.
Right? It's not being taught, yet once it showed up here, it was spoken about more frequently. You heard people who never thought would know about it speaking about it. Okay, so can I tie other events like that? Like I mentioned, this moment, it's similar to what happened, in Israel with Masada. Can I bring that into the greater lexicon of geekdom? Right? Is that
you're pulling double duty, because that is one of those spaces where it's just so much. It's so much more satisfying when you can sit back as a creator and say, not only am I educating, I'm sort of entertaining as well, but at the core of that is the sort of intersection of those two things. You're not purely just entertaining, you're not purely educating, you're doing something that's a hell of a lot more satisfying as a reader and as a creator, is sort of weaving those two things together. And lots of comics, lots of properties, lots of creators attempt to do that. It's unsuccessful because they're trying to do one of too much, or too much of one of those things. And I think the idea that you are sort of weaving these things together in a way that is satisfying, that is still very entertaining,
I hope
but
so.
also bringing that, like you said, those concepts to the geekdom. It's appropriate and it's necessary and it's great.
Geekdom is the doorway to the rest of the world finding out about.
It is. It absolutely is.
So from this point forward, I'm doing that, and it's taking me to other areas where I can explore other mythologies, and hopefully shine lights on that. So what am I bringing to the table? More than just my perspective, right? But trying to find those moments that I feel are underserved. I went to earlier the lack of Puerto Rican representation as a kid. In the early 2000s, late 90s, I remember a Fantastic Four comic book that was all in Spanish, and they dealt with the chupacabra, and it was a guy pretty much wearing Captain America flag Puerto Rico costume with a bull's skull, and I'm like, no, that doesn't work for me. It doesn't hit, man. It's like your heart was in the right direction, but you failed miserably at the execution. Right? Captain America, one of my greatest heroes of all time, introduced a Puerto Rican hero one summer in their annual event line called the Battling Bantam, and he was just a boxer.
A boxer,
big boxing. He's big with Puerto Ricans, but all the guy wore was a white tank top, white shorts, red boxing gloves, red boxing gear with a rooster's.
Come on!
Like, come on, man!
Wow!
Come on! There's a way to do this without having to beat it in, right? And still make it entertaining, right? Still make it palatable. Still make it something that you want to look forward to the next one.
Right. Right.
That's what I'm trying to do. That's my way of doing it. So
let's bring up that campaign.
Let's bring up the campaign. Yeah, and I'm with Dallas on the it's beautiful, necessary, and wonderful. So let's take a look, and we're gonna play the video on this because he just mentioned about the animation, and I am curious to see it. So here we go. Shield of the Interceptor, number 5, The Golden Moon, part 1. Let's play that video.
Shield of the Interceptor focuses on the last knight of Avalon, a modern-day hero who found the lost Shield of Avalon and now has anyone who ever searched for it coming for his head. We're looking to raise the money to print up the first issue, which is complete, set, and ready to send to the printer. You can still pick up the first 4 issues and other key moments in this extraordinary story. Just follow the details below. And thank you for supporting this unstoppable project.
Beautiful.
So the narration messed up with the first issue instead of the 5th issue, but I'll still take it. You know, I'll take it.
Oh, beautiful. And you're doing wonderful. You're already more than double on what you were looking for there.
Right.
66 backers, 8 days to go. And let me, guys, folks, everyone watching, I'm going to put the link directly in the chat here so everyone has direct link to this page if you'd like to go take a look at Shield of the Interceptor. And let's just take a quick look at what's being offered here. Yeah. We know we've already kind of gone over what the series itself is about.
Mm-hmm.
These are the new
cover to issue number 5. Mm-hmm. It's illustrated by Francesco Tomaselli. He's done work on the Power Rangers, Superman, Green Lantern, Spawn, one of the variant covers for the Transformers series that's out, issue number 1 from Image. So
also, you may need to think about getting this jacket into production because I might want
like it, right? I like. You know what? Here is full disclosure. That is just my take on the Ben Affleck Daredevil motorcycle leather costume.
Okay. Makes sense.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah.
That's it.
Why mess with a good thing?
And he's got the Robin diamond mask, but just with a chin guard.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Those influences are in there.
Incorporating the stuff that I liked, right? These are my toys. How do I build it up?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this was the card for returning backers. You know, one of the holochrome cards that I showed earlier. This is the gift that people were going to get, and that is illustrated by That one was illustrated by Granda, who is in the comments over there. Yep. So if people want it, they can still get it. You know, just an extra 5 bones as an add-on. Right. But again, we're doing this. This is the 4th time we've incorporated that, and people are popping for it. It's bringing them back. So if it works, why change it? Right.
Yeah.
You know, then here's one of our trading cards, a second trading card that has been unlocked. That's automatically going into the rewards, no extra charge. So if anybody wants to get in at the $10 physical level for the book, they're already getting the book. That $10 includes the shipping, and they're getting these 2 trading cards as well.
Wow. Nice. Fantastic. Yeah. And both of these have been unlocked. And then possibly, very likely, in fact, we're going to make it to number 3.
Number 3. So they will also get a digital comic book from another campaign that's going on right now. That's from Odyssey Comics. And that is their book, one of the other books that they published, UBs. Again, at no extra charge. We're about $100, just over $100 away, right? Okay. About $1.06 from unlocking that. So they're going to get a trading card, and our digital backers will get that extra comic book as well, right? And we're on path to do stretch goal number 4 as well, which will be, again, a digital comic book and another card. So for $10, if we get to this point, you can get 2 extra comic books digital,
right,
and 4 trading cards.
4 cards.
Right.
Yeah.
We're hoping to stretch that dollar, you know, for everybody that's out there. So then we're going down, and then here are the 4 covers. Excuse me. Here are the 4 issues. That's issue number 1, issue number 2, issue number 3, and issue number 4. We've also made, issue number 4. That cover is illustrated by Jerry Gaylord. Jerry did some of the work on the new X-Men animated series, 97, coming out on Disney Plus. Yeah, cool. You can pick up Storm Chasers number 5, which is the first appearance of the Interceptor.
Yep.
Or you can pick up Unstoppable Origins number 1, which is the origin of the Interceptor. And then we have the character guide that I showed you as well that can be picked up. So they can be either added on a la carte in the add-on section, or you could get the bundle with the whole kit and caboodle of the Interceptor stuff.
Beautiful.
That's
Thank you.
Stuff,
Thank you.
Amazing. This is interior art. Yeah.
Yep. That's illustrated by Andres Barrero. Andres did issues number 3, 4, and now number 5.
All right.
Gorgeous.
So there's a few preview pages there.
Are there any mini shields printed yet? What were we talking?
There were, but the 3D printing was too fragile to really get it out there. You know, sometimes they weren't even surviving shipping. We originally did it with the gypsum, and gypsum was way
Yeah.
fragile. Now they got a good flexible resin, but still need to finagle that a little bit more before I feel comfortable getting it out there. So this is the team. This is the team. Champe, who's been chatting with us, he's the colorist.
Yep.
Andres Barrero, he's the illustrator there. My wife is doing the lettering on the book.
Okay.
Then we have our cover artist, Francesco Tomaselli. I didn't have this here, but I got to put on. My editor on the book is Dr. Shamika Mitchell. She is an English doctor at SUNY Rockland here in New York. So I've got two wives. I've got my wife, and then I've got the work wife,
and the wife with the pin.
There you go.
Right.
You know, we go down a little bit more, and you'll see the trading cards that have been incorporated throughout all of my Kickstarter career. So for those who have not gotten them before, they could jump in and they can get these Kickstarter cards that had showed up in the past, along with our holochrome cards. So these are the bonus ones. They're already included in the set. And if you look at the end, there's a wizard card. So we had an early bird special, and we did 3 of our characters from our books, what it would look like on a wizard card, on a wizard cover. That was our wizard homage holochrome trading card. And that was only available in the first 24 hours. But again, if you still want it, you can pick up the set.
Good deal.
Then we got our full catalog here. So for the folks that are looking to save space, right, or looking for a deal, there's about 27, 28 books at $3 a pop. It's almost $90. But for $60, they can get the entire digital catalog. So they're saving space. At
29.
29. So look at that. It's almost $90. You're saving $27 if you get the entire digital catalog.
Amazing.
Right? And then here are our shirts.
The shirts.
Yeah.
Fantastic, man.
So
that is a lot of work, my friend. You definitely you guys have put in the energy.
There used to be more. Oh, excuse me. And on the back of the cover, it's not shown. I got to put that up. That's going to be one of the updates. But on the back cover of issue number 5 will be the full cover image, sans credits, sans logo, so they can display it any other way they want to. They don't have to buy a full virgin extra cover to get that, right?
Nice.
It's just
You like it.
I'm about cost effectiveness, guys.
Hey, you're about building a brand, building a good little universe here, a little corner of the universe that has all the influences that people who were born, raised in the late 70s and 80s, who were reared on that, that delicious Saturday. I like to call it that Saturday morning content.
Oh, yeah, bro.
You do a good job of that, for sure.
All right.
Thank you. That's the idea.
And it is now time for the weird part of the show. So if any of you have not experienced this before, stick around. It is time to pair this comic with some wine. I think it's my turn to go first, Alice.
It is.
I will take the honors. Now, just so everyone knows, we are pairing this wine with trade paperback number 1. That is what we have read. So the first 4 chapters of the series we have not read. Number 5, we don't know exactly what happens there. We only know what is pitched on the Kickstarter, but this is the pairing for that trade paperback. So for me, I went with something, this is a story, as we've been discussing this entire show, pretty much, like, this has all of those classic childhood superhero Saturday morning cartoon, not even after school cartoon, like, the Masters of the Universe, the Thundercats, the Silverhawks, like, it's got that action figure feel. This universe seems to have that. I've only read the Interceptor so far, a little bit of the Storm Chasers, and then that character guide, but I'm getting the sense of what this sort of superhero universe is and how it works. You've got all the traditional classic mythologies that are being used, and these are things that, a lot of us, one way or the other, especially if we were American or UK, like that, those Arthurian mythos, like we were surrounded by stories of these things, like in all different interpretations. That again, the fairy world, which comes part and parcel with Arthurian, but then you have the Shakespearean stuff. So we're all coming up in school and learning about that. And I came up at the time of Vertigo comics and Neil Gaiman. And so the fairy stuff was everywhere. Like there was no getting away from it. It was like, that was a part of my childhood as well. So everything about this feels there are modern approaches to all of this, like, or just a unique approach, because it's Jay's voice, it's his take on all of these things. But of course, everything about it just feels very classic I don't really want to use the word traditional, but I think traditional can be used, but I feel like it gives. Yeah, I mean, it has a few incorrect connotations, but it's like traditional classic, but then with a very, it has a modern twist to it, with Jay's voice, which this is not an approach to these mythologies I had seen before. I was very like trying to piece it together because I'm like, what's an interceptor? Who's this guy? What is this shield? How does this all go together? So there was a lot to go along for the ride and a lot to learn. So I had to go for a wine that had that feeling of classicism to it, where it was just this like, this is if you are a wine drinker, this is something, it's going to be easy to find. It's everywhere. Wine drinkers swear by it. It's, an everyday wine, but can be made like you can find this budget. You can find this every day. You can find this for break the bank prices, depending on where you get it from and who's making it. But I wanted something that just had one. It was definitely going to be a red wine because this story has a lot of body to it. It's got a lot of flavors that are in there. Like this was not going to be a clean, crisp white. This was going to be a tannic, heavy, and complex version of wine. It's going to have all the grape skin flavors that are going to come out of there. So I went with, and before I reveal the wine, I knew it needed to be, for me, Grenache based. And that was the grape variety that I settled on because Grenache is a red grape and it's going to be called Garnacha if you get it from either Spain or Argentina. Those are two places that have also embraced it, but it's Grenache originally from France. It's grown pretty much everywhere. It grows really well a lot of places, and it works really well in hot environments.
Very hardy.
So, right, you're going to find it in Spain. And if you get it from a hot environment, which I did, Grenache has a nice acidity to it. It's got a sharpness. It's got this liveliness to it for a red. But from a hot climate, it also comes in heavy and jammy and fruity. And it's going to have a lot of these just very like strawberry and raspberry, but jammy strawberry and raspberry. So you get the heaviness and you get this light sprightliness, which I think when you're doing superheroes and you're doing classic action figure style superheroics, you need that buoyancy with it. You don't want to feel like this is weighing you down one glass in. You need something where it's like you're going back for glass number 2, you're going back for glass number 3. It's not wearing you down at all. So I went for one of the things that Grenache does is what's called the GSM blend, where it's the G in the GSM. Mm-hmm. You're mostly traditionally you find that from the Rhone in France. It's Grenache, Mourvedre, and Syrah. But I found one from Argentina, and this is the Corazon del Sol GSM blend from Argentina, Uco Valley, Mendoza, which is one of the great places for wine in Argentina. Uco Valley is definitely look for that for quality. And this is Grenache heavy. It's 67% Grenache, 19 Mourvedre, 14 Syrah. Mourvedre and Syrah are going to give it that little bit of extra something. GSM blends are just phenomenal. If you've never tried one before or aren't aware that you've tried one before, when you know you've tried one, like Grenache can sometimes be a bit much just on its own. And the Syrah gives it that little extra color, body, and depth. And that Mourvedre gives it a lot of these almost like herb. You get more like savory notes from the Mourvedre that can come through. A little bit of cherry that comes in there as well. Makes it a little more complex. Like it just gives it these extra layers that Grenache on its own doesn't have. So Argentinian GSM for me, I think you can go for Grenache from Spain as well. Get a Garnacha from that. They are usually coming from a hot enough climate that it comes out just right. I wouldn't go for a French GSM per se. I feel like that's a little too light and airy. I would go for something from a hotter climate, and that's my pairing for this guy.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. GSM. I would have shied away from. In general, I'm not a huge GSM fan, but Dave and I have definitely shared some great GSMs in the past. And yeah, I'm gonna have to ruminate on that one a bit. Anyway, all right. So wine. this is going to be a masterclass. I'm totally, please, I'm joking. I'm bullshitting right now. Anyway, but
we drop some education. We kind of have to. We're explaining why the hell we're doing this, so we kind of have to. But we won't go too deep. We won't bore anyone too many tears.
So I knew going into this that I wanted something that kind of complemented and picked up on some of the notes, sensory notes I was getting from the property. And some of the sensory notes you get from the property are, as we've already stated, you get that kind of Saturday morning bubble gum, really fun pop-centric kind of after school thing, right? There's no greater feeling. I think that for me, the best feeling, if I'm ranking them as a school chum, as a school kid, was the after school content. It was coming home. My homework was always done because I did it on the bus ride. I get home and all I had to do.
How much non-existent homework did you have? Good God.
Oh, no, I had a lot of homework, but I also had a long bus ride, and I was also really introverted and socially awkward.
Yeah.
No, trust me.
I said every part of that statement.
I was the big, anyway. So get home, chores to do, turn on the TV around like 3 o'clock, I guess, 3:30. And it was like 1, 2, 3, go. Right, those 3 programs, and that's all I had to do in the world. That was actually a superior experience to me than Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes, I agree.
And mostly because like the house was kind of empty at that time and after school, it was just me, right? So that is my sort of sensory kind of ballast for determining what the experience was for the wine. And so I decided, I knew it was going to be a red, and I also knew I wanted something that there's a quality in certain wines that you get from a certain production process, and it ends up the note ends up being bubblegummy or sweet tarts. It's a very sort of faint note, but the more you drink from that bottle or that glass, the more sort of acute it becomes. And the process is called carbonic maceration. And if anyone doesn't know, carbonic maceration is, for all intents and purposes, the oldest form of winemaking, because really it's just taking the entire cluster of grapes with the stems and everything and allowing them to ferment in an anaerobic environment. And what happens is
technology to do anything else. So you just threw it all in there and let it happen. Yeah,
precisely. And so what happens is you build up this curious little component in the back that on the tongue, on the palate, feels the experience is bubble gum, sweet tarts, sort of candy, and it's a fascinating little sort of experience. So and you find this in a lot of the organic sort of French wines, because there's a real big sort of organic vegan craze that happened it's been happening in the last like decade, but it's biodynamic and vegan wine. The grape is a blend of Dave, and tell me if you've heard of this grape, because this was actually, I have to say, it was a new one to me. I know it's called something else. Its derivation is called something else, and I can't remember now, but it's 70% Ségolène, which is a French grape that is apparently very rare now. I have this trend of finding these really rare grapes. I have
heard of it, but I can't even tell you where I heard of it.
Exactly.
It is one that's just like popped up.
Very, very, very curious little grape, but it's also 30% Malbec. And so even though there's no sugar added to the wine, it gives you this sweet, like candy quaff. It's the quaffability, right? So it's got this candy-like quaff, right?
Like, but it also has this almost kind of a thing. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's curious is the nose is also really kind of just earthy, which taps into, in your piece here, that kind of old world mythos, right? Those kind of tried and true tent poles that are the Arthurian legends, the fairies, all that stuff. So I got all of that with this guy, and I have to say, it's just outside of this, it's become one of my favorite wines from the first taste. Like it's just fantastic. So I went with the Claudio Audieux 2020 Queue de Pourcent, and it is. Can you guys see that? I'm not in focus.
You know, I don't want to spell it.
Fairly well.
Put it in the notes because I want to pick that up. Yeah, I mean,
there we go.
Queue
de Pourcent.
Okay,
wow.
gotcha.
Okay.
Anyway, it is a lovely, lovely little bottle. And like I said, you got to sit with it a little while and then let it open up, and you'll get those very sort of faint, depending on the bottle. It's like I call them Saturday morning notes. They're Saturday morning notes. The bubble gum, the sweet tarts. So yeah,
Beautiful.
That's my pairing with this.
And by the way, Jay, we will put links to all the wines. Give us 24 hours after the live stream, and we'll get it in the description below this video. So if you ever, like a week later, you're like, "What the hell did they pair with this?" You can come back and you'll be able to find everything.
Well, no, I want to try at least. I definitely want to try the Corazon de Sol here on my own. But tomorrow we're going.
I want to try that too.
And we're going away. I'm going to be with some family.
Oh yeah.
You touched on Malbec. That's a blend that. My uncles loved, and one of them passed away, and we're going to remember him this weekend. The other one is still there, and if I can find this bottle when I'm out there visiting with them, you hit me on a family moment.
It's a fun bottle. It's honestly a fun bottle. It is a fun drink.
All right,
it looks fun. That label looks fun too.
Yeah.
Like no one, I would never be able to pronounce that name, but it looks fun.
I'm still looking at what I wrote, and I'm like,
right,
do the process. That's what I got.
Well, right before we turn it over to Jay for our grand finale, a couple comments from the chat just to catch us up. Hey, you think Puerto Rico is badly represented? How about Colombia's snow flame? Research that one. Or
sorry,
if you're brave enough, go for it, guys. I will definitely Google it as soon as we're done here. We also have the OMG. That's a lot of info, and here I am drinking guayaba juice. And then we have hi, cuz from Maria.
How you doing, baby?
All right. And what we always do to wrap these things up, we ask our guest, Jay. He's going to bring on a comic that he is loving or digging right now to spotlight and pair it with a beverage of his choice. Doesn't have to be wine, so we're going to see what he does, but he's just going to get into the fun of the beverage and comic pairing shtick. So, Jay, take it away. What do you got?
All right, so here we go. This is a buddy of mine who just fulfilled one of his Kickstarters, Tom Hutchison. Okay, and he does sometimes he does themed video game. Themed elements within his Kickstarters. So he ran a video game day where some of the characters in his pantheon, right, step back from the roles they play in their individual series, right, and hang out in in a camp or a fun setting. And he brought them together here in Video Game Day. So he fulfilled this recently on Kickstarter. Good dude. And I am pairing that bad boy with this big boy here. Now, as much as I wrote about comic books, I am in no way as eloquent as both of you were in describing the elements and the notes and the complexities and the finish. That is just, that was just magical. That was soothing. Jeez, you guys should be selling my book. That's right. So all I'm gonna do is pair it with some 18-year-old JMO, some Jameson here, because the Interceptor from the UK, but I don't drink gin. You know what I mean? So we'll go for something. It's a bit of a stretch for some people, but it's a great presentation. That's right. It's something you bring out for nice elements, and I'm here with you guys for the first time. I had a great time with you guys. The honor was drinking this 18-year-old Irish whiskey with you guys tonight. As we got to talk not just about comic books, but inspirations in life, and
we are a random corner of the universe.
I love that. That's what I love more than anything, is being able to just start at one topic and run, and see where the conversation takes you. And I had fun with you guys doing this stuff.
Good, man. We did too.
Thank you.
Put some impeccable work into this property, and you brought an entire universe to life. So bravo, good on you, and all the artists you work with.
And still going strong. Seriously, this is the publishing imprint / universe. I mean, that is an insane accomplishment. Especially because you started before it was easy. Not saying the people who have Kickstarter from the get-go have it that easy, but comparatively, we really fucking do. So let's just say that, you know, you started when it was even harder and you're still here today kicking ass. So that is something to celebrate.
Yeah, rocking and rolling.
Good stuff, Jay.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thanks, everybody, watching.
Yeah, we're going to sign off here, but we will catch you all later. Wine and Comics Pairing Show. If you're not watching this on YouTube, just look that up. This is what we do. We interview people and we pair their comics with wines. It's weird. It's wonderful. Come watch us again someday.
Tell your friends.
Oh, yeah.
Interceptor #5 on Kickstarter. If you want ours, it's Armageddon Quest.
That's right.
On Kickstarter or ArmageddonQuest.com. See you guys. Good night. We will check you next time.